Hi there, thanks for joining me again. In this video, I want to address a very common question. Do I need a study permit to come in Canada and study? Predominantly, the answer is usually yes, but there are a few exceptions where you do not require a study permit to study in Canada. The first one that I'm going to explain is most of our clients, and the other two are not necessarily applicable to everyone. So I'll explain it, and then you decide if this applies to you. In regards to do you need a study permit to study in Canada, it's a yes unless your study in Canada is on a short-term period, and that short-term period is 6 months or less. Usually when you come to study in Canada for 6 months or less, it doesn't equate to a diploma, it does not equate to a degree, it may equate to a certification. However, 6 months or less, you do not need a study permit. And in regards to applying for it, you can just file a visitor visa application and explain your reason for your entry is for a temporary study in Canada. So the documentation and the forms and all that stuff are very similar to filing a visitor visa. However, when you want to explain it to the officer as to your intent in Canada, you want to include the acceptance letter for that 6 months program or less, tuition that you've paid for it, etc. And the officer will most likely issue you what's called a temporary resident visa to enter Canada, and then you exit at the end of the stay. So that's one way that you do not require a visa, a study permit. And there are a few other exceptions. The other one, if you are a member of a foreign armed forces. So if you are a member of a foreign armed forces, so you work for the military, you specifically do not require a study permit, even if the program is longer than 6 months. However, your kids and spouse, they would have to possibly apply for a study permit should they want to study in Canada. So this does not branch off to dependents. It just is for the member of foreign armed forces. And specifically, I'll just read it to you. If you're a member of a foreign armed forces under the Visiting Forces Act, you do not need a permit to study in Canada. Your family members, including minor children, want to study in Canada, they must meet those particular requirements. So that's a very good option, that if you are a person that has worked in the armed forces and you are part of the Visiting Forces Act, you could apply for a study permit. You could come study in Canada without applying for a study permit. And again, the documentation essentially most likely will be the same as a visitor visa and explain your intent in Canada. The last way is the foreign nationals who are registered Indians in Canada. So if you're a foreign national and you are registered as an Indian in Canada, you do not require to apply for a study permit. So I hope that clarifies. Again, most of our clients fall with the first exception, which is 6 months or less study in Canada. You don't have to file an official study permit application. However, you still want to include documentation to show your intent in Canada. I hope that qualifies for when you should apply for a study permit and what are the few exceptions where you do not require a study permit. Thank you so much, and until next time.